Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I have a mini Aperture scene card to share with you using the Hero Arts July 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit. So this is a look at the kit. You get a 6x8 clear stamp set, 18 coordinating frame cuts, 3 die ink cubes, mushroom washi tape and stardust sequins. The kit is limited edition, so if you like the look of it you might want to grab it as quickly as possible in case it sells out. So what I have started with, I have stamped out 2 of the images, the little kind of tree house and one of the gnomes from the stamp set, onto some white cardstock with Intens-ified black ink from Hero Arts, and I'm colouring in the image with Copic markers, and the Copic markers that I used will come up on screen, and then I will also have a list of them all over on my blog as well in case you're interested. But I'm just using some G shades, some green shades for the kind of leaves on the top of the house there. I used G29, YG17, YG25 and YG01. I am going through this pretty quickly. As you can see, I've sped this portion up. I experimented and tried to film the colouring portion on my phone rather than my camera. I've been trying recently to figure out ways that I can film a little bit better. I've stopped really colouring in videos because I have to lean over so much to be able to colour that obviously my head gets in the way whilst filming. So I've been trying a few different things out and I didn't think the quality was quite as good as I'd hoped. So I am speeding through this, so I apologise for that, but you can pretty much see what I'm doing anyway, and it is pretty simple colouring. So for the kind of treehouse portion itself, I'm using E59, E57, E55 and then E53 just to blend out the little bits at the top between all of those leaves. I thought this little house looked quite good with the gnome, kind of like he's living in that little house. So I'm just going in and kind of shading a little bit between those leaves. And then for the door, I'm using BG49, BG15, BG13 and BG11. And then I did use a little bit of Y11 just inside the door there to kind of look like light was coming through the window. And then for the little gnome here, for his skin, I'm using E13, E11, E00 and E50 for his skin. And then for the outfit, I'm just using the same BG colours, the BG49, BG15, BG13 and BG11. I do really like that colour combination for aqua colours. Gnomes generally are quite, here in the UK anyway, they're kind of like either blue or red, but I thought I'd do something different with the aqua colours. And then for his trousers, I'm using C10, C7, C3 and C5, excuse me. And then for his shoes, I'm using C5, C3 and C1. And the little kind of buckle on his belt, I used Y26. And then for his beard is W5, W3 and W1. And I kept that little bit on his hat just white. I've then die cut those with the coordinating frame cuts that you get in the kit. Next, I'm taking this die here. This is an add-on to the main kit, and this is the Hero Arts Forest Vines Fancy die. Hero Arts does release lots of extra products that work well with the kit. These are not limited edition and you can purchase them separately from different retailers. And I really loved this vine image here because it creates an aperture onto a panel, and so that I could have this scene inside, and I thought it worked quite nice instead of a simple kind of shape, although I think that would look nice as well. I thought this vine image worked nicely. So I've die cut that out, and then I'm just popping out the inside piece. I did actually cut it out from black cardstock as well, and you might see that a little bit later. I do like how the black looked, but I felt that it didn't quite work with the images that I used, so I went with white ultimately, but you might see the black pop up as I do some ink blending. So I want to have some sky behind behind. And because I wasn't sure whether I was going to use the black panel or the white panel, I'm doing the ink blending on a separate piece of cardstock. If I had just gone with the white panel when I knew that I was doing that from the beginning, I could have just ink blended straight onto the card base, but as it turned out, I just had this extra piece and that is absolutely fine. So I've just got a piece of a Dove White cardstock here, and I'm just ink blending on some Hero Arts Splash Reactive ink. I don't particularly need the reactive properties to this. I'm not adding any water or anything like that, but the reactive inks do blend quite nicely. They're a combination of pigment and dye ink, so they do blend quite nicely. And then I want to add some kind of darkness around the edges, so I'm going in with the Blue Hawaii reactive ink, and I'm just using a piece of memo tape there just to kind of allow me to hold the panel without getting my fingerprints into it. I'm using the Hero Arts ink blending brush here. I really love these brushes. They work really nicely for ink blending, and especially with these reactive inks. So I'm just kind of going all around the outside, and here's that black panel that I cut. I do think, like I said, I do think it actually works really nicely with the ink blending, but I feel that the images didn't quite work so well. So I'll use that panel for another card another time. I'm just going to go back here. I wanted to see with that panel on top to see how far I wanted the darker colour to be. So I'm just going back in with that Blue Hawaii colour and just adding a bit more of that. And then I felt that I did want some darker colour. So I'm going to go in here with the navy colour, and this is a mid-tone shadow ink. And I'm just using a domed ink blending foam for this because I want to have the colour quite dark towards the top. And I find that I get a higher concentration of colour when I'm using the ink blending tools versus the blending brushes. So I'm just going around there and just going around the edges mainly. Again, I think I bring in that panel, or I may have cut that out of the video, but I do bring in the panel a few times just so that I can see exactly how much ink will be visible through the aperture. Once I finish that, I'm just stamping the sentiment from the kit. It's two separate sentiments, so there's no place like, and then there is a home or a gnome, and I went with the gnome because obviously I thought it would work quite well with that gnome image. I've added lots of foam tape onto the back of this panel. I didn't add foam tape onto the vines, I kind of just left them sort of hanging. I think it worked out okay in the end. And then I'm just taking that ink blended piece and I'm just sticking that to the back of this panel, just checking that it's in the right place before I press down. I think that's okay, so I'm just going to press down the edges there, and then I can also add some tape onto the back of that piece because I've got the foam tape that's going to adhere it down onto the card, but I just want a bit of extra tape or adhesive on the back of that ink blended piece. And then I can adhere that down onto an A2 sized white card base, and then I can just press that down. I've added some thinner foam tape onto the back of the house here, just using some tweezers just to help me out getting the backings off of that foam tape. I wanted it to have a couple of different levels here, so I wanted it just to be still dimensional but not quite as dimensional as the panel. So I'm just popping that down behind the grass there at the bottom, and then I'm going to take those vine pieces and lift them up over the house, but I just want to figure out here if I've got the right placement first before I stick that down. And then I've added a little bit of foam tape onto the back of the gnome as well, adding some tape runner just at the bottom so that I can add him onto the grass. And that's the card finished for today. I did think about adding embellishments, but ultimately I quite liked it just plain and simple as it was. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.